Hello and welcome to this Dawn Busters Taste Challenge. I wanted to start 15 minutes ago, but things did not work out. Took a little longer to watch the entire, all 15 Major League Baseball highlights from last night. Then I had to start checking the standings and the box score for the Cubs and White Sox. Then I had to start fooling with this rock and roll club business. So, and eat breakfast. All right, anyway, and finish 3 cups of coffee. But here we are with the showdown between Ancient Age. Now, they're saying on the company's website that it's been around since 1946. But I did some trademark research, and the trademark information I found said it was put on the market, that they got a trademark for this in 1936. So I'm not sure what's the story behind that. It's a big jump, it's a big gap. 46 to 36, 36 to 46. All right, but anyway, this is the 80 proof version. This is not the original recipe. It's the modern expression. Brian Jump says, "Hey, Ron, good morning, bud. Good morning to you." Now, I had forgotten, I was doing all the taste challenges, and I said, now I'm going to hand off to the Jethro T. Boots. But then I was looking through the stash, and I said, oh, wait. Old Granddad. I'm going to close the group chat part because I'm not in a group. Forgot about the Old Granddad 80 proof. This is just their standard bourbon. It used to be, yeah, it's not the original recipe. It used to be like 86 proof. And I think before that it was 90 proof. There's also the Old Granddad Bonded that's been on the market since 1897, and that's 100 proof. But the brand Old Granddad's been around since 1882. Yeah, and the trademark information I did the research on, that showed that. It said first use anywhere, 1882. So I said, okay. And that's not the oldest one. Okay, so let's see. OGD, Old Granddad. Made by Beam Suntory, Jim Beam Company. Beam Suntory, the Suntory famous whiskey company from Japan, makes the Old Granddad. Distilled and bottled in Kentucky. Let's see. Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, high rye mash bill. Yeah, that's what makes this distinctive. It's got a lot higher ratio of rye to the other grains than most bourbons. Frankfort and Claremont, Kentucky. Yep. The Beam headquarters. I don't think they give tours. They don't give tours at the Frankfort facility because you can't find anything about it. Now they give tours here at Buffalo Trace. Buffalo Trace is where Ancient Age is produced. And they talked about this at the distillery. Buffalo Trace is owned by the Gold Ring family, the Sazerac company. It's a privately owned company. A man and his wife own this huge worldwide liquor company. But they were showing us in the barrel house. They said, here's the barrels that have the Ancient Age and et cetera, et cetera. And they were going all into it. And everything like that. And they were selling this at the distillery gift shop. They didn't have that offered for a taste. They didn't have this offered for a tasting that day. They kind of rotate. What they had offered that day was Eagle Rare, which was fabulous, and they had Buffalo Trace, I think was the other one. Their standard Buffalo Trace bourbon. There's a whole array. and I believe a Weller. And then they were giving a lot of it. They weren't so strict, like, oh, you get this much and you get this much, now get lost. They were two old guys and they were just pouring it, and they weren't really watching. And if you wanted more, they let you have more. You know, you can have more. Try this one. Try the Buffalo Trace. Try the Eagle Rare. I'm trying to think. I think it was Weller. Yeah, the other one. And they weren't being stingy, like little tiny tastes. And then they were given this candy to eat, this pecan bourbon caramel candy. And then, oh, anybody, they said, you want to try our vodka that we make here? And the guy said, I know the ladies would like this. And then some people say, what? I guess implying that vodka is like a women's drink. And I don't know if it is. I've never done market research on vodka, but actually a lot of women lined up to have the vodka. And then they had a bunch of kids, children on the tour, so they were letting them drink some kind of Sazerac root beer, whatever kind of root beer they had, because they make a lot of root beers apparently. And then, but I didn't drink the vodka. I just said, no, it's too much. I said, I have to drive and everything. I just passed. But although everybody was bragging on how good it tasted. How good it tastes. Let's see here. Yeah, it's about the same height. A little bit more of this one I poured, but shouldn't. Ancient age. Yeah. I better fix that. It's a fascinating tour. It lasts about an hour and a half, and I would recommend it. Plus, it's totally free. Parking is free. The tour is free, and all the complimentary drinks and food, you know, the candy is free. Obviously, they're making their money because people are just buying all kind of stuff at the gift shop. Same thing at Barton Distillery, west of there, also free. And they're not stingy with their, like I said, with their offerings. And also they said they didn't want to be on the Bourbon Trail. They used to be on it. They quit. They said the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, they didn't like being on it because you had to pay dues. Secondly, there were requirements, like you had to charge for a tour. And they said, we don't want to charge for a tour. We have too many people. They said, we just don't want to do it. And they had a lot of people coming for the free tour. They said it was a better marketing thing, they thought. Don't be stingy and charge for the tour. And they said their bourbons are selling so well anyway. They just felt like it was like hustling the bourbon fans or whatever they were explaining, something like that. Like they didn't think it was kind of chinchy, you know, to charge people. And they were saying they were so crowded as it was without being on the Bourbon Trail. They could barely handle the capacity with just people walking up and finding it on their own. Apparently people know about Buffalo Trace, so didn't really need to promote it any more than it was promoted. That's what they were saying. And I've had good, one more thing. The Jim Beam tour was no charge, but you had to make a reservation 2 days in advance. And I said, well, I was going to go tomorrow. I'm not going to wait around, so I just didn't do it. It was too bad. Although, from what I understand, that's one of those more notoriety tours, you know, scripted talk, kind of fake chumminess, very slick. It's not too much nuts and bolts of how they make the product. It is, but it's more of a show, sort of like the Jack Daniels tour, which was definitely a show. And not really worth $17. But I did it. I went on the tour. I said, I've done it. Okay. Guess I better mix them up. My prediction is I should be able to tell these apart because of the Old Granddad's High Rye Mash Bill. It's going to have a little more spiciness, peppery spiciness. Sun is coming up quickly. It wasn't totally dark when I sat down here to do this. could be very hot today, very hot, 97. Not looking forward to that. Hoping we'll get some good cloud cover with the heat building up, making moisture turning the moisture into black clouds and some rain. Yesterday was pretty. The whole summer's been kind of mild, just hit 90 because we're getting rain all the time. But yesterday was clear skies and 95. And humid. It's not Phoenix, Arizona 95, where your skin dries and cracks, which I don't really like that. It's humid 95 here, extremely humid shower, steam from the shower 95. That's, you can almost breathe in the water. I'm used to it, but a lot of people just would not be able to take it. I see people come down here from other places and it's so overbearing, they can't handle it. They say it's miserable to them. You don't ever need hand cream though. You never use it. You never use chapstick until the winter time. You have those select few dry days, dry humidity, but that's not too common. You could buy a bottle of hand cream and it'd take you decades to use it. Probably break down and deteriorate before you could use it all. Okay, so let's see about comments. Good morning, Ron, says John and Neil. Good morning, John. Thanks for joining us yesterday. I don't think I'll be able to get the Jethro T boots in Georgia, seeing as CVS don't sell liquor here. Doesn't sell liquor here. Well, that's a shame. But not much you can do about it. You have to take our Louisiana road trip. The old granddad has such a cool bottle. I know. It's a flask bottle, but it's not cheap. It's glass. You know, you get those flask bottles, they're plastic, they look so, these are cool. And it's got this like rumpled leather, like the label's paper, but they make it feel like stitched, like it's leather stitched on here. It's really awesome. It's about $11 for this bottle. You know, it's not a cut rate price. It's not a cut rate bourbon. When you went live, it made me think of that old song, Whiskey Before Breakfast. Yeah, but in my case, it's whiskey after breakfast because I already drank the 3 cups of coffee with a vitamin C. I take 1 vitamin C every day, 500 milligrams. And believe it or not, I've had very few head colds since I started doing that about 12 years ago. I mean, I get them sometimes, but they're not as severe as they used to be. Seems like that works. I am not a medical doctor, nor do I give medical advice. Yeah, here we're having whiskey after breakfast. Kent Beer Review says, hi, Jay. Hello, Craig. You can go get these too and join me. I don't know if they can get these in England. I really don't know. Okay. You say time to drink, huh? That's what you're trying to do. No, time to taste. I'm not a morning drinker. I'm a morning taster. I want to put this in the right perspective. I don't advise drinking before 6 a.m. and I would never dream of doing it. Certainly not ever dream of doing it. But I do taste it basically for science. It's mostly a science project. So, all right. Oh, all right. So, oh, that's got a lot of spice in the nose. I already think this is old granddad, but you know, if you watch these taste challenges, these Dawn Busters, what's my success rate? 50-50? People will say, I can tell my bourbon. I know my bourbon. I know my beer. Want to do a taste challenge? No, I'm busy. I don't have time, but I would pass it. No, let's do a taste challenge. I'll moderate, and it'll be a double-blind taste test. Oh no, I don't need to do that. No, I insist. If you swear you can tell your bourbon, let's do a blind taste test. I think it would be a fantastic idea. No, you're racist. That's like people's default. Their default defense against any challenge. Racist? How is challenging you to do a blind. You said blind? That's offensive. I'm triggered. Yeah, but I'm talking about a taste challenge. Don't say that word. You should call it other-sided taste challenge. Okay. And this will be more difficult than I first believed. All right, so they both have a little spice. If you get on the Sazerac website, there's a PDF file. It's all color. It's a color photo chart, and it shows their mash bills for each bourbon, and it'll give you the rundown on Ancient Age. I think Ancient Age is under their higher than average rye ratio, so this could be a tough one. Okay, some spice, some sweetness, sugar, oak, vanilla. Oh, another thing, the Ancient Age is 3 years age, 36 months period. Old Grandad is a no age statement bottle. They give no age statement. What does that tell us? Well, and I was checking all through the website. There's nothing about it. It's at least 4 years. So if you're not required to give an age statement if the bourbon is 4 years or older in the barrel. So it could be 4. We don't know, but it's at a minimum of 4 years in the barrel aging. Smells really good. This one here on my left hand. Maybe you're right. Okay. Now this one, I detected a little whiff of I call it a Sazerac house style. It's hard to pin down. When you say house style, almost like you can't describe it verbally, but you can mentally think about it. It's yeah, that makes sense, right? Mentally think about it, as opposed to thinking about something in a non-mental way. Okay. I do cognitive thinking, not mental thinking. Oh, right. There's something about Sazerac, though. It's got this little, it's like a little butterfly. Ooh. I can't describe it, but it's something to do with the yeast. There's a little flutter in it. You say a flutter in the aroma. Yeah, it's hard to pin down. But you get it. It kind of runs across their products. Even when you get into their brandy, it's got that little, ooh, and I don't know why or how that would be. Maybe it's picking up something in the barrel house. I don't know, but I know that the brandy is aged in the bourbon barrels, the used bourbon barrels. So I don't know. Taste. Playing in the band, daybreak on the land. All right. There's pepper. Definitely there's rye here. I had that Sazerac rye whiskey a few years ago, about 5 years ago. I did a video, and that thing was just like, I could see why some people would hate rye whiskey. It's so pepper. It's like Reuben. You could make a Reuben sandwich with it. You could just add a little sauerkraut, some corned beef, and a kosher pickle, and some potato chips, and don't add bread, and you'll think you're all right. Oh yeah, and you got to have that sandwich spread. All right. Make sure it's kosher. I will. Golly gee. It's got the sweetness, the pepper. oak. I will say this. Now, take into account that the ancient age is $10.99 for the standard bottle, 750 milliliters. The old granddad is $11, same price, $10.99 or $11. We're talking about a penny difference. But this was $11 after tax. I mean, you know, this guy at this Citgo station, he did not charge tax. Or I don't know how he's doing his little operation over there on Louisiana Highway 3188. And I'm not there to ask questions. I said, how much for this? He said, $11. I said, what about the bottled and bond? Oh, you want this? You could have it for, oh, wait, let me retract. It was $20 even for this and the bonded, both sizes. So the bonded was 11, this was 9. Okay, all right. That was last year. Because he said, you want both? For you, $20. I said, okay, there's the money and I'm going. Okay, so $9 versus 11. But one bottle is twice the size of the other. So you pay $2 more, but you get twice the amount. And what I'm finding out in the flavor is there's not a great appreciable difference. So where does the value lie? Obviously in the ancient age, because if I'm drinking two products, but if I'm drinking two products, I meant to say if I'm tasting two products, drinking, forget that word. It's 6:07 a.m. I meant to say, you see, sometimes we use incorrect speech. I meant to say tasting. If I'm tasting two bourbons and they're comparable quality, comparable body, similar flavor, but the price difference is a fairly big gap, it would be $18. So let's translate it to the correct bottle size. So we're talking $10.99 for this, whatever it is after tax, 12 something. And then we're talking 18 for this. I mean, if you want to pay $6.50 more for kind of the same thing, go ahead. I wouldn't do it. I'm going to, whether I get the contest correct or not, whether the taste challenge is successful, and even if it's successful, it's still just a guess, right? I can't tell them apart. So a 50-50 shot proves nothing. It's like I flipped a coin and said heads and I got heads. You say, oh, you're so good at calling. Yeah, I'm great. The cut and dry of this is that the ancient age is a better value. We're talking about $6.50 cheaper per bottle after tax. So, I mean, there's just no, now, is it going to be the same case with the old granddad bonded? No, because the bonded has a richer, heartier, some people would say harsher flavor. It's much stronger. It's not even a sensible taste challenge because it's much stronger. I think I'm more of an 80 proof guy than a 100 proof. The 100 proof gets a little tough. Although I did finish off that Old Crow bottled and bond 100 proof, and I put the ice cube in there, and oh, that was a beauty. That was a beauty. The Clueless Drinker, Peter says, afternoon/morning, Ron. Afternoon for him, morning for me. Hello, Peter, the Clueless Drinker. Y'all should join me for these bourbon things. If you ever want to, I know I've got people saying, you're turning against beer. Hardly. That would be like if you commonly ate cornflakes for breakfast, but then one day you bought some Raisin Bran because you wanted something different, and people said, why are you turning against cornflakes? I always thought of you as a cornflake guy. Well, I am a cornflake guy. I just felt like eating Raisin Bran, right? I mean, I'm a beer guy. I don't see why there has to be some kind of like strict requirement that you only do one product. I never followed that requirement because if you look back on my channel, go back to 2011, 6 years ago, and I was doing wine. So John Anil says, yeah, the Ancient Age really seems to be holding its own against these other brands. Oh, boy, you said it. I've been going one down the line, right? I think that's the best way to do the challenges. And it's been hanging in there. Hadn't always been winning. Sure hasn't been losing too much. It's, so what does that tell you? Can you get a really enjoyable, good, high-quality bourbon for $10.99 or even $9.99 on a sale? Obviously, you can. You certainly can. And you can't. And you could just say that's going to be my standby bourbon for now. I'm just going to buy Ancient Age. I don't think you'd go wrong with that. It's fine by me. John, we had a little problem last night with me getting kicked out of my own hangout, and I couldn't get back in because some people were not conceding their spot. Didn't matter because it got knocked off air after a few minutes. There's a time clock, and if you're not on your original hangout, it clicks it off air. And I just had to start it in a second hangout. But I can't. I was thinking about this before I went on air this morning doing this tasting. What were your legacy beers again that you wanted to talk about? Because you were kind of caught up in that little break point. If you could tell me here what your legacy beers were. I'm gonna just set this here in case anybody wants to click on just for talking for a few minutes. I'm not gonna go long if you just want to hang out. Coors Banquet, Budweiser, Hands, and Pabst Blue Ribbon. Oh yes. Oh, that's right. You were talking about Coors Banquet. You were saying how really nice it was, and you were talking about the can. Oh yeah, that Coors Banquet. I mean, I can't get tired of that beer. I cannot make myself get tired of Coors Banquet. Budweiser, I don't really drink it that much because I find the price is a little bit higher always than regular other beers that are comparable. I don't pay for name, but if I was stuck drinking Budweiser every day for the rest of my life, I wouldn't mind. I'd prefer Coors probably, but I like Budweiser. Hams, I really wouldn't mind that. That's a jewel. I got to go buy some more Hams. And Pabst Blue Ribbon. Oh, well, you saw how fast I drank that Pabst Blue Ribbon last night. It's got that distinct flavor. I always said that Pabst at first I didn't like it because it was a little too like differentiated or something. I said, what? This thing tastes like wine. Why does Pabst Blue Ribbon taste like wine? You know? Well, then I read an article in the National Geographic magazine where they talked about they use a special kind of yeast that gives it a winey aspect. I said, oh, makes sense. So that's why I think I would go with Pabst Blue Ribbon. Yeah, that would be my number one. My number one occupation. Stealing women from their men. Okay, yeah, I think Pabst Blue Ribbon, I would go with that as my number one standby beer because the price is okay. It's gone up a little bit in the last few years, but and it's got a distinct flavor that you think about as you drink on. Every time I drink a Pabst Blue Ribbon, well, I guess every beer, you know, but even more so that one, you're thinking about it. Like each sip, you're thinking, you know. So could be Schaefer, but I can't get it, so there's no point talking about Schaefer. Oh, I used to love that Schaefer. Ah, yeah, the Weekender. Get those 24 packs for $7.98. The Weekender. Okay, on with the bourbon. You see, you got me talking about. Actually, you didn't. I got myself talking about beer, but all this commiserating. No, I think I want to say that I think this is the rye. This is the higher rye. I think this is Old Grandad. It's just too spicy. Too spicy, too spicy, too spicy. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Oh, blah, blah. Hey, remember earlier in the hangout, I said that there was sort of a Sazerac house style, and when I first smelled it, that little butterfly went through, that flutter. This is ancient age. But immediately after I shut this off, I'm going to check on that. I want to check on that mash bill chart. And I'm pretty certain they're going to show ancient age as being more in that higher rye. Yeah. Well, I failed, so sorry. Good grief, that's the strangest thing. You see, that old granddad, the rye kicks in later. There's a delayed reaction. I think that's what got me, because it's sweet. It's like caramel. It's deceptive. And then the rye comes in underneath. You say, whoa. But here, it's more overt, right? That one's more covert. Here, the rye presentation is much more overt. Yeah, it's bombastic. It's like right in the front. I don't know, man. 9 and 12. So for like just over $21, you could have bought these 2 bottles. And they're pretty complex, right? I'm not just like making this stuff up, trying to pretend like it's so complex just to use airtime and intrigue the viewers. I mean, really, these have a lot of dynamic character. And I can remember being a little kid in Grand Isle, Louisiana. My grandparents had a summer house. Well, sort of like a summer, fall, winter, spring house. They would live down there all the time. They were always down there. Got destroyed by Hurricane Katrina. And we stay down there, at the beach, because it's a big beach, 7-mile long beach. Yeah, in Louisiana. You didn't know Louisiana had beaches, did you? Well, we do. It's a huge resort town. This weekend coming up, next weekend coming up is the International Tarpon Rodeo. My grandfather was a fleet surgeon for that for decades. But I can remember laying on that floor, looking at TV, and there was that bottle of, and then going behind the cabinet to get something, and there was, because they had this bar, and they had the old granddad back there. I could just remember that. I didn't think about it like, oh, look, old granddad. I just remember seeing it. So when I saw this bottle, I said, I remember that stuff. Because drinking was kind of like their main. They used to fish and crab, go shrimping, crabbing, fishing, gigging for flounder. Obviously, all of that, boiling crawfish. I mean, boiling crabs, boiling shrimp, gutting fish, frying fish, grilling fish. But the drinking was, and getting pastries at Dufresne's Bakery on Louisiana Highway 1. They always had to stop at Dufresne's and get pastries, and then drinking that strong coffee. But the beer drinking was ubiquitous in Grand Isle. I mean, Grand Isle is, I think there's like a law. You have to drink copious amounts of beer to even be let onto the island. I'm pretty sure that's a law. It must be a law, because I've never gone down there without seeing people display the most outrageous behavior. People usually that aren't used to drinking. But my family, they were more reserved in their regimen. But then they, at night, they would get in more into the wine and the liquor. And then I remember some of the women, they would always be drinking Tab. It's like 1972. They'd be watching Young and the Restless and drinking Tab. And that was like the new daytime drama, the new soap opera, Young and the Restless. Everybody had to watch Young and the Restless. And then they had some neighbors across the street. And they were retired, older people, and they were always drinking, and only hard liquor, and only all day long. They were pretty funny, they would stumble over And the guy would give all this philosophical advice. He'd say, let me tell you about fan belts. And he would go on for an hour. I used to know a guy that worked in a fan belt factory, and they'd go on and on. Jimmy M says, you're right. I wouldn't bet Louisiana had beaches. It sure does. Grand Island, it's a natural beach. It's not one of those like manufactured beaches like in Mississippi where they just took a mangrove swamp, sort of like, and then they pumped in all this white sand in the 1940s, one of those Works Progress Administration, you know, during the New Deal, and they create a beach. No, I mean, it's an actual beach that was created by nature. Like, you know, God made this beach. Not power equipment, not diesel powered equipment. And the beach down there is brown sand, you know, so you can tell it's natural because that's what kind of sand they have around this part, the Gulf Coast, Louisiana and Mississippi and Alabama. It's brown because the Mississippi River dumps so much dirt, alluvial soil, and it's brown. That's why if you look at a satellite map, a satellite photo of the Gulf of Mexico, it's all blue, but then there's this fan of brown going into the Gulf from the Mississippi River, and it's churning, it's river sand. So the water's brown. You know, people will come to Grand Isle and say, oh, hello, Maxwell. They'll say, oh, the Gulf of Mexico is dirty in Louisiana because it's brown. The water's brown. It's not dirty. It's just got river sand in it. If you took the water and you let it settle in a few hours, you just see brown sand at the bottom, and then, you know, it's would be clear, relatively clear. Now, if you go to Florida, yeah, the sand is naturally white because what is Florida? It's a peninsula that was built up entirely by limestone. So yeah, it's blindingly white sand. I mean, you have to wear sunglasses. You'll be literally like snowblind. And it's the whole, once you get south of Orlando or to Orlando, everything's white sand, gray sand. It's like brown, then gray, and then white as you go south. Everything is white, you know, it's sand. And then once you get to the Florida Keys, then it's rocks. It's coral. You can't really go to the beach there because it'll slice your legs open. It's like razors. It's dangerous. The water's perfectly clear, blue, perfectly clear, like Hawaii, I guess. You can see 50 feet down. But that limestone is like razor blades. So it's extremely dangerous to go to the Florida Keys and do swimming. Plus you got the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic Ocean, and they're kind of cross, and it's there's a lot of wind. I wouldn't swim down there. I'd be a little nervous about boating, but there's everybody out there in a boat. Boats. Never seen so many boats. All right, so enough drinking and talking about geography. Well, you know, I used to teach geography, so if I start talking about that, it never ends. It's a tie. I mean, honestly, it's a tie. It's not a tie in price. But the flavors are comparable, you know. I'll go with the Ancient Age. It's a better value. Jimmy M says, yeah, never seen brown sand before. Just regular colored sand here up in New England. But the water does look a little dirty. It's all the plankton in the water, they say. Yeah, it could be plankton. Yeah, okay, so like if you go to the Mississippi River and go up over the levee, you can walk over the levee. There's beaches on the river, actually. Like here in this parish, St. John the Baptist Parish, like beaches, like that brown sand. I know that people camp out there because you can go, sometimes if you go out to the levee, there might be like a half a mile of woods before you get to the river. I mean, it's a wooded area, and there's little trails, and you can go to the beach, and I can see where people had campfires and maybe a tent overnight. No, it is not an authorized camping area, but I know people do it, and they'll go ride three-wheelers back in there or four-wheelers and do all, who knows what they're doing back in there. growing plants they're not supposed to grow or whatever. But and there's some people that live on the other side of the levee, like they have houses. If you go to Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, you say that's a curious thing, a road to the top of the levee, and then but that's a driveway, and then they park on the other side, and they have little wooden ramps to their houses, which are built on stilts, sort of like Brunei or Malaysia, and the people live on the other side the levee, called the Batcher. So it's a weird thing to see, but yeah, there's beaches, and then if you go to the Lake Pontchartrain, I could ride a bicycle to Lake Pontchartrain from here, and it wouldn't take too long. What is it? 7 miles? Well, 5 miles by a straight line. And the sand at the Lake Pontchartrain is white or tan, white, off-white, khaki colored. Well, you see, because Lake Pontchartrain is not getting the Mississippi River dumped into it. So it's a much cleaner beach as far as the sand color. You can swim there. I wouldn't do it. But that is a different color sand. How has the oil tragedy affected the local coastline? Has it recovered? Yes, it recovered. That was 7 years ago. It wasn't really an oil spill. It was an oil leak, remember? The pipe blew open. And it was just a pipe. The pipe was only about this big, what, a foot across? 6-inch radius, 12-inch diameter. But there was oil pouring out of it all day long. So it filled the Gulf with oil. Then they were able to figure out a machine that they come up with this equipment that plugged the hole. I think they did more damage with the cleanup than the actual oil because of the chemical they dumped in the Gulf of Mexico to break up the oil. And what did they use? Dawn. You know, the liquid detergent, you know, where you wash dishes and it cuts through the oil. You know, if you got oil caked on a pan and you get hot water and take Dawn, it just washes it right off like magic. Yeah, but you know how strong that chemical has to be to just immediately remove oil from something? That's why you should never use Dawn to wash your car, because it'll strip the wax down to the paint. But they're dumping trillions, I guess, trillions of gallons or billions of gallons, I guess it was billions of gallons of Dawn liquid in the Gulf to break up the oil. Yeah, and then it poisoned all the fish. And then all the seafood, they say, what? It smelled like oil or it smelled like chemicals. Like, why does this seafood smell like chemicals? Well, because you dump chemicals so it took a while for that all to dissipate. It was a total mess, man. Deepwater Horizon. That was a nightmare and a half. Ronald, are you just awake or have you not gone to bed yet? Is it morning in Louisiana now? Yes, it's 6:29 a.m. I've been to bed. I woke up at 3:45 a.m. And then I did the tasting. So yeah, I'm going to shut this off. I have some beer reviews to do. I got to post a beer review. So look for that. That'll be interesting. Well, it was to me. It may not be interesting to you. Yeah, so Craig, that was a mess. Terrible, horrible. And then everybody was suing everybody. And then you had all these claim jumpers, right? All these people that were claiming they got damaged. Oh, I've been damaged by the oil leak. I have to have $1 million and I'll be better. You know, all these fake claims. So it's the afternoon in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Okay, 12:30. Okay, exactly 6 hours ahead of us. Huh. That's cool. All right, well, thanks, folks, for watching this taste challenge. Now, so what's next? Well, in a few days, maybe next Tuesday, maybe Saturday, I don't know, we'll see. Ancient age versus the old granddad bonded. Now, if I can't get that straight, you should really question the channel, because we're talking an 80 proof versus 100 proof. That should be a clear, discernible difference. Okay, if I cannot tell the difference between an 80 proof bourbon and a 100 proof bourbon, that would not be good. That would not be a good sign. It wouldn't just be that they're so similar. It would be that maybe I don't have a good handle on the flavor issue. I think people can make a strong argument to my detriment on that. Hey, I would have no real defense against it. All right, so anyway, we've got the Old Granddad Bonded versus Ancient Age, and then we'll do the handoff to the Jethro T Boots, and then we'll do a long march through all of those brands and go around the circle and taste that. And then as we go around the circle and as we drink them down, then we'll bring in another one, right? So we got the very old Barton, which will march through all of that. Then we've got the Evan Williams green label to march through. And then we got the Evan Williams black label to march through. And I've got the Barton whiskey, a blend, that Barton. So that it all has to be filtered or marched, slotted through, right? So, and you would hope you'd gain some kind of, you, meaning me, would gain some kind of taste ability. But it's not as easy as it seems. Like people that claim that they know their bourbon, be very, you should question that claim. If they can do a blind taste test with multiple brands and replicate it, then you might believe it. Otherwise, I don't know if I believe it. All right, thanks for watching this video production. You take care.